the stairwell going down. I asked him, I said, I need to get in there and help bring the children out. And I was really concerned about that. And he said, no, the children are taken care of. You have to go out the building and go on down. So that's what we did. But I do want to stress that getting back to the bombing itself, I saw one man the day before the bombing. This was on a Monday afternoon, and he was carrying a handheld, and I presume it was a satellite phone. But he was talking to it, and he says, well, now how does this work? And I remembered being able to hear that. And he was a tall gentleman. He was like 6'1", maybe something like that, 6'2". And no, I think maybe 6'1". And but gray hair, had glasses on, and had a GSA uniform on. And I looked at him and I thought, God, he really looks kind of old to be learning a new job. I mean, I'd never seen him before in all these years. And I thought, well, maybe somebody is on vacation or training or something. And they've just put this guy in there for the day. Well, I let it go. And then the next morning, that was the day before the bombing. Then the next day of the bombing, when I came in after seeing those men outside, I was going to mail a letter inside because we had a post box there. And right to the south of that post box for the mail, there was a doorway that led to the stairwell. And out of the stairwell came this man and another gentleman. And they looked at me, they tucked their heads down, and they were, I don't think they were more than, at the very most, maybe 2.5, 3 feet from me. And the shorter gentleman, he had on a T-shirt underneath his. They both had on those uniforms, and I thought from GSA, and I thought, well, now that's strange. We have two, and they were moving. Once they looked at me, they put their heads down and they scooted around the corner. And I thought, well, maybe they're just somebody here, and I mentioned that I thought they may be from outside even.
And who did you later identify that man as?
Yes, I looked and looked, and I was shown some pictures by another investigator, and I identified him as Gary Hunt. And it was sometime after that it occurred, some months after, I had gone to Ohio to visit my son for the holidays, and my daughter was there at the house, and she was over for the day to take care of my home and everything. And the doorbell rang, and she opened the door, and in walks a gentleman from Arizona, and he was with another man, and he walked in the house, and he walked over to the telephones and starts disconnecting everything. And he said, because my daughter said, my mother isn't here. And he said, well, I want you to tell your mother that I'm a friend of Gary Hunt's, and she has identified the wrong person. And she needs to be aware of that, and I want her to know that. And I thought, well, that's strange. He comes all the way out there to tell me that. And so when she called me long distance and told me, and I said, okay, thanks, thanks for telling me and everything. And she told me if they didn't leave, she would call the police. And so they did leave.
Who is Gary Hunt?
He is a special agent for the FBI.
Yeah. And then, of course, we've got Danny Boy, one of the head FBI guys. You said he was in Dallas and got a flight up there the day of the bombing, and it turned out there were no flights, and he wasn't on the flights. And then we learned hotel receipts. Danny Boy was actually there the day before. Tell us about Danny.
Danny Colson, yes. He actually said that he had driven up here in a big hurry that day, because we actually have video of him, on the scene that day, and it later came out that it wasn't. There was no way that he could have done that. His claims of the hotel receipts, everything, he had to have been here prior to the event.
Well, also too, Alex, I want to bring in that Louis Free, his assistant, was there that morning right after the bombing. They have pictures of her directing people. The fire department couldn't even go in to rescue anybody because she would not allow anybody in there other than FBI people. And they were taking out money. They were taking out. I understand
all the papers.
Papers from.
And that later got confirmed that you got the head Clinton
Yes.
people, you've got the FBI director's assistant there to block the fire department from, on the scene. I mean, this is incredibly scripted, incredibly staged.
What type of intimidation did you actually experience?
I felt like my phone was being tapped because when I would pick it up, you would get these clicking noises on it. And I did finally call the phone company about it, and I said, I really believe my phone is tapped. And I said, can you check that? And they said, well, I said, I want to find out if it is. They said, well, we can't report that to you. If it is tapped, we will notify the police department. And I said, well, what if it's the government that's doing it? And they said, well, we're sorry, we can't give you that information. Well, after that, it stopped, and then I didn't have it anymore. So, Alex, it was another lesson. If you're not paying attention, it's amazing what they can do. I know when I went over to some of the different people's homes, that I was told that that they could sit in that the FBI, the federal people were sitting in cars, which were 2 blocks away, and they could hear everything that was being said within the house.
Well, and the phone tapping, this was also something that the Oklahoma Bombing Investigation Committee experienced. They actually called a number that they had that could identify if the phone was being tapped, and it was. So they were definitely monitoring anybody that was countering the official story and actually trying to get the truth out. Who are people going to believe? The actual survivors that were in the building, like Jane and VZ, or the official story. And so they did keep a close eye on them.
And it's again, it shows human nature, and that with all the people, I was so distraught over the fact that in this country that they would come in, they would bomb where there were children involved, and it's being taken care of. And who is there but the same FBI leaders, whether it was with us or Ruby Ridge or anywhere, the same people keep coming up, heading up the investigations. They're the ones who give the orders. It's amazing that after all of this took place, all of the people, whether it was the police chief, whomever, they all got wonderful jobs, making big money, improvements, and it's just, I don't know, it's so discouraging that people will not stand up. Even my own people within HUD that were there, there were so many good workers, there's so many good people, they were wonderful, and yet, they are so one-sided in that most of them refuse to believe that this can't be anything other than what the government says it is, even when they change their story a number of times. And I tried to get them to identify. I wanted us to look at pictures. I asked to look at pictures of people, of FBI people I thought I could identify. Through the police department, I went to several attorneys about it. I talked about it to the FBI. I sent a letter to Stephen Jones. I sent a copy to my own attorney, my doctor, and for verification of what I was saying to the FBI. I gave them descriptions of the men that I saw, precisely where they were, times, everything. I had an appointment with one FBI agent. His name was Agent Schwecke, and it was going to meet me in my union office, and I arrived that day. He never showed up. And then I finally called the number he left me, and he said, oh, I've got busy with something else. I can't make it. So we set another date. And again, he didn't come. And so that was it. And then the FBI did come to Department of Housing and Urban Development, and they went to the they met us all in the Indian division, and they interviewed everybody there. And they wanted to know, when I was being interviewed by a female agent, she said, I would like to know what you saw that day. They had a standard script that they were asking questions. And I said, I sent you all a letter. Do you not have that on file? My letter telling you everything I saw, the men I saw, what took place. She said, there's nothing in the file about a letter or what you have said. So I said, you turn this over and you write down what I'm going to tell you. And I gave her the same story. And I said, in other words, in a 10-block radius that they were doing this interviewing of people, I said, you ask them where they were, what they were doing, you know, very, very bland statements, you know. There was nothing in there asking them, did you see anything? I tell you, when I was told by an FBI agent that the men that I saw were employees of the Journal Record Building, I said, okay. I said, if I misjudge somebody, I will apologize. I will say I'm wrong. You know, that's all right. And to do that. So I proceeded to take it upon myself. And there was another woman investigator at the time here in Oklahoma City. And I said, would you go with me? I want to find these men that were the mechanical people, maintenance men over there. So the building was closed, and we started looking, and I got the men's names, and I looked one of them in the phone book, and I went out to his house. He lived in Bethany, and I rang the doorbell, and his wife came to the phone, and I said, can you tell me, is your husband? She said, gave me the address where he worked down off of Reno. And so I went down there, and it was cleaning place and janitorial and all that. And I went up, I saw his name underneath the sign on the picture of him on the second floor. And I said, this isn't the man.
And here you are, a survivor of the bombing, and you're doing more of an investigation than the FBI. And it seems like this is what we see throughout the entire investigation was that it was all about quantity of documents, you know, just to create this body of supposed investigation. But they never asked the important people the important questions.
Well, I went back and I figured, okay, if anybody knows where those two men are now, there's a parking garage directly behind. So I went over there and I said, you know, the people who were in the building there, the maintenance, do you happen to know where they went to? And he said, oh, yeah, they're down on Robinson. He gave me the address. I went down there and I found out where one of the men was. And I said, okay, he was working in another building off of 10th. And I went down there and he wasn't there. And I left a message and that I'd like to talk to him. And they got him on the phone. And I said, could I make an appointment with you? And he said, yes. And so I came the next day to meet him and to have coffee. And I told him why I wanted to meet him. I said, I have identified someone, and they say that you're the person I'm identifying and that it's not Gary Hunt. I said, and I need to see you because if that's true, then I want to know. So I went over, I met him, I walked into his office, and I looked at him, I said, thank God, you are not the man that I saw. Then he told me that there were 3 other sets of people. The FBI told him they had 3 other sets of people who were identified that looked like them, that weren't them. And I thought how very typical they were because, and the 2 men that I saw, Gary Hunt and the other gentleman, he had been, they were both carrying satellite telephones. And when they came out on the screen, on the TV,